The Divine Abode City Skin is here, and you can get it in your KVK now. But should you be getting Divine Abode, which gives you 10% Cavalry Defense, or should you be going with Twilight Falls? Today, we hope to answer that question. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms gameplay episode from your very own Shappy Gaming. I know it's been a while, but today we are going to be breaking down the Divine Abode city theme, which gives you Cavalry Defense plus 10%, but you lose Infantry Defense of 10%. Or should you be going with Twilight Falls, which gives you 5% skill damage, but you do lose some of that advantage of your infantry attack? Neither of these skins is going to be particularly good for your infantry, but today we're going to be looking at how impactful these are to your cavalry marches. It is worth calling out, both of these skins are purchasable in KVK and are both great investments, but today we're going to be looking at exactly how good these investments are. So let's talk about what we did in order to test these cities themes. To begin with, we had 6 different duels, one-on-one duels with Nevsky Joan. Why did we choose Nevsky Joan? Nevsky Joan has the lowest variability in the testing due to just the nature of their skills. There's not a lot of randomness in their skills. As you can see, when we click through, there's not terribly much where there's a chance to deal X. Whenever you're doing a testing, I typically recommend going with those marches, which have fairly low variability. The other advantage of using Nevsky Joan in this testing was the fact that Nevsky Joan is one of the top cavalry marches that you might actually be running in a KVK, which means that this is a really practical test to run with. The other thing I'll call out, we did 6 different tests. We did some with equipment, we did some without equipment. I know in the past I've made all these testings and people have said, Shappy, you're not testing with equipment, so it's not realistic. So I added equipment into the testing, and I hope that you guys do enjoy. Now, before we get into some of the reports, I do want to shout out a huge thanking to Viking for helping me do this testing. I really appreciate your help. I know it took a little while, but it all worked out in the end. Also, as we read through the reports, feel free to check the top left of your screen. That's where the duels are actually recorded there, so you can watch them yourselves. But I hope you trust me when I say that everything was legit. A couple other things to call out as part of this. We did not have any buffs, we did not have any armaments, and we did not have any formations. We used a line formation. Why did we do this? Those things can add a lot of variability, and we wanted to get a true understanding of which of these city skins is actually the best for your use. And we had some interesting results. In our first test, you can see that I actually won this duel. This test was completely naked. We had no equipment. We had no city themes. And this was just plain bare. Now, Viking is the Ottoman civilization, so that is something to keep in mind as you look through this testing. But here you can see, everything was pretty much normal. Viking, I think, is VIP 17, but I actually ended up winning this very first duel, which gives us a phenomenal baseline, because you see, if I win, then you know that something is going wrong. But this is no city skins. So, in our next duel, we added in city skins, and I believe this one, let's double check here. This one was the Twilight Falls city skin. Let's confirm. That's 8% skill damage. And this one is 13. No. So this one was actually the defense buff city skin, which was the Divine Abode. And it was really insightful because I lost this duel, as to be expected. I kept my city skin the same. However, you can see that there really wasn't that much of a difference in the two of us. I only lost 89,000 power, whereas he lost 84,000. So it was a fairly close duel. Again, no equipment was used in this duel. But the findings are essentially that the city skin makes an impact in that you take less severely wounded, because here's no skin, here's with skin. But it did make a difference into the total outcome of the battle. He ended up dealing more severely wounded to me by 2,000, which is pretty substantial when you think about it. These were 200k T4 marches, so that does have some impact, but that was the way throughout the entire battle, so that was pretty consistent. So that was the first report, which uses Divine Abode. Personally, if I were Viking, I'd be pretty okay with this. But again, this is not using equipment, which does have a big impact. Now here was the Twilight Falls duel. In Twilight Falls, Viking actually took way less damage. Let's talk about why that might be. I think that the extra skill damage dealt means that Joan's skill is proccing more frequently and dealing more damage each time it procs. I didn't have that skin, so my damage output remained the same. So what this means is that the Twilight Falls skill actually enables you to deal more damage faster, which when you're talking about a murder ball situation is incredibly helpful. However, he didn't have that same tankiness that he otherwise would have had. My suspicion here is if his march was attacked and swarmed by even one extra march, his traits would have gone way down with Twilight Falls. Whereas with the Divine Abode, his march would have more lasting power in the field. Now, once we add equipment, we'll see how this takes into effect. One thing to call out is skill damage equipment is much harder to come by than defense equipment. So that's just something to consider as we look at this. However, in this duel, I took just about as much severely wounded, slightly less actually, and he took significantly less severely wounded, which is really nice. Again, I do think if there was a second march in this duel, he would have taken more severely wounded. And if we scroll down, you can see that his skill damage output was 13%, whereas previously it was 8%. So that concludes our naked, no equipment testing. Now, let's move on to the with equipment testing, and let me explain why this matters so much. So this was our first with equipment testing. Neither of us had a city skin on. This was entirely naked. I lost the duel. Why did I lose the duel? Because Viking has better equipment than I do. And this is a consideration to have when you are talking about field fighting. This is why I've always been averted to using equipment in testing. But I thought if I kept everything consistent, it could have an impact. So naked, I lost this duel. I took 26,000 severely wounded, and he only took 19,000. So what is his equipment? Well, I'm going to show that up on the screen for you now. Let's pull that up. Here you go. So here is just a glimpse into what his equipment looks like. As you can see, he has the Pride of the Khan, and that's critted. I don't know how he did that. He must have gotten extremely lucky. And he has Ash of Dawn, and he has the Cavalry set for the boots and the chest. He also has the ring critted and the horn critted, which adds some variability into these duels. Another reason why I'm not a huge fan of equipment within duels. But this is fairly realistic because when you think about going into Murder Ball or any KVK situation, there is going to be some variability in terms of what equipment people are using. The variability here that I see the most really does come from the horn and the ring. And what does this mean? The horn means that he's going to be dealing skill damage much faster, and the ring means that when he does deal any damage, there's a good chance that it's going to be dealing more damage than it previously was. So let's take a look at my equipment. So my Nevsky was running this setup, not quite as good, but I have the full cavalry set, I have Ash of Dawn pants, and I also have the ring, and I had the blade. The blade decreases health, the ring, again, increases damage. So this was a standard duel. Again, we did not use armaments. We chose not to use armaments because I still feel that they add too much variability, and our goal here was to check and see exactly what the impact of adding equipment to these duel sweaters. So as you can see, I lost the first duel, and this was fully naked. In the second duel, things got interesting. I believe he used the Divine Abode skill here, and we can double check that with the skill damage. Yep, 8%. So this was the defense buff. And with the defense buff, I took 28,000 severely wounded, and he only took 19,000. When we were naked, he still only took about 19,000 severely wounded. But I took an extra 2,000 severely wounded. So the impact here is still pretty substantial with the city theme, which I was kind of surprised by because you get a lot of other buffs with the equipment. But this impact was real. So taking a look at the Twilight Falls experience, you can see that my severely wounded went way down. I took 2,000 less severely wounded than I did with the defense buff, which is kind of counterintuitive to me, but it's real and it happened. The other thing to call out is his severely wounded were essentially the same. You've got a difference of 500. severely wounded, which gives you a really substantial ratio, because I would personally trade 500 severely wounded for another 2,000 damage dealt than I would otherwise. And as you can see, Twilight Falls really didn't do well for him holistically. I still lost the duel, as to be expected, but when we compare it to me losing the duel with no city skin at all, it's really not that dramatic. You can see I had 192,000 kill points with no city skin, and then I had 195,000. So I actually got more kill points on him with when he's using Twilight Falls than when not. So that's something to consider here. So what does this mean? What is the consensus here? This means that the Divine Abode city skin, which gives you the 10% cavalry defense, may be more impactful for a single march than the Twilight Falls skin. Now, there are a couple of considerations here. When you're talking about infantry versus cavalry, etc., Twilight Falls is going to be extremely valuable if you're running multiple marches in the field, which everyone is going to be. The benefit there is that all of your marches will benefit from that skill damage. However, your infantry marches will be getting a little bit more hurt because they're losing that attack, and they're losing defense with Divine Abode as well. And the difference, though, is that with Twilight Falls, if you're running Guan Yu, your Guan Yu is going to be dealing an extra 5% skill damage. Now, when you're running Lu Che, you don't quite see those benefits as well, but you do see them with Scipio. And what this means is that the Twilight Falls city skin is probably going to be benefiting all of your marches, including those that may not be getting the benefits from the cavalry skin. And if you watch my last video, which I'll link on the top right side of your screen now, you can actually see me testing Twilight Falls versus the infantry skin and the impact that it has. So be sure to go check that out. So what is my recommendation? My recommendation here is if that you are running 2 to 3 cavalry marches and only 1 infantry march, I would consider going for that cavalry skin. However, if you do have really strong archer marches, you may want to consider using Twilight Falls. In this situation, I think the testing told me a couple things. A, if I want my cavalry marches to be a little bit tankier in the field, I should probably go with the Divine Abode city skin. And the reason for that is that defense is going to make me slightly more swarm proof, and it's going to augment my existing armor. However, that buff only applies to my cavalry. And I believe the defense loss that you get with Divine Abode for infantry is probably more impactful to your infantry march than the attack loss that you're seeing with the Twilight Falls. And the reason for that is if we take a look at the infantry equipment here, and we can look at this, pull up my infantry equipment, you can see that the infantry equipment typically is going to be favoring the infantry attack as we look at the infantry skills. So between the equipment and the KVK tech, you're balancing your infantry attack and defense. I really don't want to lose defense on my infantry. As you can see, I have my set very much made for defense, but the actual set for infantry really favors attack. So my build is mostly defense-based. The reason for this is that infantry are always going to be a little bit slower, which means that when you're in a murder ball situation, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be getting swarmed. If you're getting swarmed, your attack output doesn't mean quite as much as your defense does. So I am really loath to give up my infantry defense. So that's my opinion on this. I hope that you guys have enjoyed. I would recommend going with the Twilight Falls city skin if you are running 5 marches of all different troop types. But if you are running 3 cavalry troop marches, I would recommend going with Divine Abode. I hope that this has been helpful. If it has, be sure to hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right hand corner of your screen. Thank you all. Shappy out.